Welcome everybody to a special episode of the Megala Mukois. At this time of war, when Israel is in grave danger, defending itself against a force of terrorists who rule over our neighbors in the Gaza Strip, which Israel left nearly 20 years ago. We're still in shock and horror as the atrocities are revealed. We appreciate the support of President Biden, the US, and all civilized countries that realize that if Israel falls, Europe is next, and the US is not far behind. This is a struggle for the forces of light against darkness, for civilization against those that would destroy it. Everyone needs to do their part. I'm a rabbi, I teach, so I'm here to teach. We were supposed to be on inter-semester. We began our studies early this week in order to lend our efforts to the war effort for victory of Israel over its enemies, for refuah, for healing for the sick, the wounded, for nechama, comforting those who have lost their loved ones, a zchus that those taken into captivity, old people, Holocaust survivors, children, babies, will be returned home to their families as soon as possible. So I've been teaching this week and came across incredible hashgacha. We find in learning Torah that God is with us in a really intimate way. He cares what we learn. And so I began to learn Breshit, the very first verse of the Torah. And I found in it a reference to Gaza, to the Gaza Strip, in the very first pasuk of the Torah. So that's what I'm here to share with you today, how I found Gaza in the first pasuk of the Torah. Here we go. I've called it Gaza in the Parsha. Everything is illuminated. And everything is illuminated is an expression that means that even in the darkness, God is with us. And his hashgacha, his providence, is all over and in every detail of our lives. So with that, we begin. It's all orchestrated from above. And again, it was shocking because it was Shabbos, it was Yom Tov, it was Simchas Torah. It was a day that Israel celebrates its special relationship to God. Kosha alai predaschem. God says after a 7-day holiday of Sukkot, which is in a sense an international holiday for all the nations, I want to spend a day with my beloved people Israel. And on that day, over 1,000 Jews were mercilessly murdered in their homes and on the streets and at a festival of peace. So what's that about? How did this happen to us? And it didn't just happen. And of course, the intelligence and military failures are colossal, but they're not the story, because everything is orchestrated from above. So anybody who knows anything about anything knows that Israel has been suffering. It's longer than this recent government. It's a process that's been begun over a number of years. And I've called it pathological disunity, a factionalization in Israel between virtually every party and their neighbor, left, right, religious, not religious. It's a terrible mess. But Israel now has returned not to the Yom Kippur War of 1973, but to its War of Independence in 1948. And Israel will be reborn, and it will be born in a new image. The Israel that was will be no longer. Israel will be a new country. What is this picture, this illustration I took out of a video I've put here on the screen? It's important and full of meaning. Maybe you don't get it. So the people you see are Hasidim, and some of them not Hasidim. It's a particular Hasidus Karlin Stolin. They're located in Beitar, not far from Yerushalayim. And what are they doing? They're making tzitzis on what? On a garment that's army green. You see it's olive drab. You see they're putting white strings, fringes, tzitzis, as the Torah commands, on a four-cornered garment of army drab uniform. Why? because Israeli soldiers, and 300,000 have been called up. The response to the call up has been 130%, meaning 100% of soldiers who were called up have shown up, and an additional 30% have volunteered for duty because they recognize that we're fighting for our home, we're fighting for our lives. My son-in-law's brother was exempt from the call up. He lives in Muncie, but he was here in Israel, so he reported for duty as on active duty, and he's doing what he needs to do. He sent us pictures. So these Hasidim, these Yeshiva Bachrim, they are making tzitzis so that the soldiers who clearly need to go into Gaza and essentially reconquer it, to free the Palestinian population there from its oppressors, the Hamas. So they want to be protected by God, which they will be. God is in their midst. But they like to feel something tangible besides their gear and their bulletproof vest and their helmet. They want to wear tzitzis. And I'm not talking about the frum guys, the religious soldiers, because they're already wearing tzitzis from home. These are regular Israeli non-religious soldiers, and they want protection, they want connection, they have faith, and they want to wear it on the corners of their garment as the Torah commands. So this is a beautiful act of unity of people that are exempt from serving in the Israeli army because of their yeshiva studies, their divinity students, but they're taking time from their studies in order to help protect their buddies who are serving at the front. It's heartwarming. So, of course, we just celebrated Simchas Torah in the shadow of those attacks. But it means we're starting the Torah all over. Rebirth, renewal. Bereshis bara Elohim, Eis hashamayim ve'eis haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So we're in the very beginning of creation. And all the Meforshim, all the commentaries on the Torah, many of them even have an introduction to the Torah, but everybody has something to say on the very first verse of the Torah. So I was teaching yesterday the Ramban. The Ramban is very, very close to my heart. He's a very important mainstream central authority of the Rishonim, and we have his wonderful commentary on the 5 books of Moses, which again, it's vast in its depth and its breadth and its ideological basis of Judaism. So I am going to share at length today words of the Ramban, Rabbeinu Nachman, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, Nachmanides he's called in English. And he came to Eretz Yisrael. He was involved in a debate against a Jewish Christian apostate, Pablo Cristiani, at the whim of the Spanish monarch. And upon winning the debate, he needed to get out of town. So he was able to realize his dream and come to the Holy Land. So in approximately 1270, about a little less than 800 years ago, Ramban came to Eretz Yisrael. He was in Akko. He visited Yerushalayim. So he loved Eretz Yisrael and he lived Eretz Yisrael. And so that's what we're going to share today about the Ramban's special insights into the sanctity, the specialness of the land of Israel. Bereshis bar Elokim. The Ramban begins by quoting Rashi. Rashi says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, Lo hayat tzarich lahatchila Torah ela mi'achodesh hazelechem. The Torah didn't have to start from the story of creation. It could have started from the first mitzvah. The first mitzvah is not in Genesis. It's in Exodus. It's in Shmois. Parsha's Bo. HaChodesh hazelechem, the Jewish calendar. God tells Moses and Aaron, you need to establish a month. It ultimately becomes, it's called Nisan. It's when the Exodus, Yetzias Mitzrayim, takes place. The Torah could have started from there. Shehi mitzvah rishonah shenitztava b'Yisrael. That's the very first mitzvah. So why? Matam patach b'reishis. So why did the Torah start from the creation of heavens and earth? He answers. Again, this is all a quotation. This is Rashi. Rashi's really quoting the Midrash Chazal. She'im yoimru umusa oilam, that if the Goyim say to us, the Jews, listim atem, you are bandits, you are robbers. Shekavashtem lachem artsois shiva goyim. Today they use the term, you are settlers and colonists. You're imperialists. If they say that to us, that we've conquered the lands of the 7 Canaanite nations, Heim omrim lahem, we answer, Kol haaretz shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu hi. All of the world belongs to God. V'nitana la'asher yashar be'einav. He gave it to whom he saw fit. Ubirtzono nitana lahem, ubirtzono nitala mehem v'nitana lanu. He gave it to them at his discretion, and at his discretion he took it away from them and gave it to us. Zu agada belashon shekatva Rabbeinu Shlomo beferushav. This is the language of Chazal. Rashi brings it down verbatim, and the Ramban quoted him. And the Ramban asks, but how can you really say that the Torah didn't have to start from the creations of the heaven and the earth? That's very important to know that God created the heavens and the earth. And he explains that, okay, but God really says that in the 10 Commandments. I'm the Lord thy God, I brought you out of Egypt. And he says in Shabbos, I created the heavens and the earth, the seas, and everything upon them and within them, all in 6 days, and rested on the 7th day. So the fact that God created heavens and earth is elsewhere later on in the Torah, so we wouldn't need this Parsha for that message. Furthermore, explains the Ramban, you can't really understand the science or the secrets or the mechanisms of creation from the words of the Torah. The only ones who could really understand it today, I might say, are the scientists who don't really know yet how the world was created. But those who, he calls them the Yodei Sod, right? The ones who know the secrets, and the ones who know it are not allowed to reveal it. So that, if you're not going to tell us how you did it and the mechanism, so why are you telling me about it at all? So again, he goes back to, yeah, but there's all the story of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. So here's how the Ramban continues about it, before I tell you more about Gaza. The Ramban continues that God moves nations around. And let's see how the Holy Land will remain holy. Kasher Yosifa Goy Lachto. When Adam was put into the Garden of Eden, and he was given one mitzvah, and he violated it, he was exiled. Exile is punishment for sin. And it's not only individuals, it's nations. Kasher Yosifa Goy Lachto She'albed Mimekomo V'yavo Goy Acher Lareshes et Artso. When a nation sins, they lose their place, and another nation comes and takes over. Ki chein hu mishpat Elokim ba'aretz me'olam. This is the law of God from forever. V'kol shekein im hamasupar bekatuv ki knan mekulal v'nimkar le'eved olam ve'eno roi sheyirash mivchar mekomot ha'yishuv. So this is true all over the world. Nations don't have sovereignty forever. Their sovereignty is predicated on their righteousness to a certain degree. And again, all of mankind are bound by the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach, the 7 Noachide laws. And if they're a ruinous civilization, an immoral civilization, a murderous civilization, they will ultimately fall to their own evil and be consumed, be exiled and destroyed, as has happened to countless civilizations throughout the history of the world. I mean, right? Where are the Hittites and the Jebusites, etc., etc.? They're all gone. So Eretz Yisrael, though, is not just any old piece of territory. It's God's chosen, favored land. And Canaan is a descendant of Ham, one of Noach's children, and he's not a favored child. He's a wicked child, and he was condemned with slavery. So it's inappropriate that Canaan will be the continuing sovereignty over the chosen land of Israel. The land of Israel, Yirashua Avdei Hashem Zera'o Havo. It will be inherited by the progeny of the beloved of God. He's referring to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Ke'inyan shekasuv, as it says in the pasuk, Vayiten lahem aratzot goyim va'amel umim yirashu ba'avur yishmoru chukav v'torotav yinsoru. The point is not so that the Israelis can live good and build a country club, but that the Jews can live in the Holy Land. Yishmeru chukav torotav yinsoru. But in order to live by the laws of God, to study His Torah, to fulfill the mitzvahs of the Torah, mitzvahs atluyos ba'aretz, agricultural mitzvahs, ultimately we're going to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. Kilomar, shegiresh misham moredav v'hishkin bo ovadav, sheyedu ki ba'avodato yinchalua, v'im yechteu lo, takio isam ha'aretz kasher ka'ah et hagoy asher lifneihem. The Ramban paraphrases, God exiled those who rebelled against Him, and He brought here to the Holy Land His servants, that they should know that it is through the service of God that they are inheriting it. And He's, of course, referring to the generation of Joshua, but I'm referring to the generation of modern Zionism. And we didn't come back to Eretz Yisrael because of the Dreyfus trial and Herzl's vision. That's important, and those are stages in the game, but they missed some of the key points here. And the key point is that if we don't keep the Torah in Eretz Yisrael, takio isam haaretz kasher ka'ah et hagoy asher lifneihem, if we don't keep the Torah, we will be vomited out from Israel the way those that were vomited out from before us. Israel has had a lot of masters, okay? We took over from the British. We fought the British to gain our sovereignty. We helped the British get away from the Turks in World War I. The Ottoman Empire was here a long time, but there's a long list of Mamelukes and Crusaders and other Arabs who held it in different periods. Of course, the Romans had it after they took it from us in 70, the Common Era. So nobody has had long-term sovereignty in Eretz HaKodesh since, the Second Temple period. And our sovereignty here is a function of Shmirat Chukav Torotav Yinsoiru, keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs. So I haven't gotten to Gaza yet, though. Let me tell you a little bit about Gaza. Civilizations come and civilizations go. Gaza, in Hebrew, we call it Aza, with an ayin. And it's first mentioned in Genesis. It's a border city of Eretz Canaan. I gave you a map here. The map here is, from CNN. They call it the West Bank, and, they put the Golan Heights separate. Okay, but I wanted to give you the idea. My son asked me, where is Gaza? So Gaza in the southwest corner of Israel. We share a border there with Egypt. Of course, Gaza has a border with Egypt. That's right now. Egypt could solve some of this problem by taking more of the 2 million people from Gaza into its territory, but they don't want them, and the Jordanians don't want them. So Gaza is a pathetic and awful place to be. And in the peace treaty between the Egyptians and the Israelis, in Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat in 78, the Egyptians wanted Sinai, but don't give us Gaza. We don't want Gaza. So Israel was stuck with it. It's an awful headache. We built some beautiful places there in Gush Katif, Jews who were dedicated with their lives, and many paid with their lives, to build a beautiful oasis in the desert. It's very deserty there, but they built beautiful place, and then Israel left it. I would say 2005. And again, it was uncanny that the week that Israel did what was called the hitnatkut, the disconnection of Israel from Gaza, it was a Parsha that mentioned Gaza in it, the same pasuk we're going to quote today, which I'm going to quote soon. So meanwhile, I'm giving you background on the Gaza Strip. It's one of the oldest cities in history, okay? This is not like a new problem. And is it a Jewish city? Well, Jews have lived there for hundreds of years. You recall Shabtai Tzvi, the false messiah. His chief PR guy was a guy named Natan Gaza. So Gaza is an ancient port city like Yaffo, okay, like Tyre, Lebanon. These are biblical cities, and they're, in a sense, pre-biblical. And so sometimes Jews have been there and non-Jews have been there. The sovereignty has changed many times. The name Gaza means Aza, Az, means strong, which is a fitting name, considering the city's strongholds and fortifications. It was a city associated with the Plishtim, and now we're really quoting a pasuk. The Avites lived in Gaza, but the Kaftarites displaced them and settled in the city. The Philistines were most likely identical or related to the Kaftarites, who were from Crete. So Crete, if you study, the ancient classical civilizations of Rome and of the Mediterranean, Crete is one of the very first places of the development of civilization. I put here a picture of, a mythical figure from Crete. That's from Crete. And so people from Crete came to Gaza and displaced the people who had been there until then. Okay? So I've given you now some background on Gaza, where it is geographically, and a little bit about its ancient history. Let's bring things up to speed. We're continuing with the Ramban. So Gaza is the proof case of the transient nature of sovereignty. So these are the words of the Ramban, again quoting Midrashei Chazal. Halo uma shel bezizus atem. The Goyim, the rest of the world, will say to the Jews, to Israel, you are a plundering nation. And right, they'll say you're colonists, settlers, you're imperialists. The Yisrael meshivim lahem, the Jews answered them. V'atem lo bezuzahi b'yedchem. Where did you get it from? Halo kaftorim ayotzim mikaftor hishmidum v'yeshvu tachtam. Gaza was held by the Kaftorim, the people from Crete, who took it from the Avim, from a previous sovereign. As the pasuk in Dvarim says, Va'avim ayoshvim bechatzerim ad Gaza. Kaftorim ayotzim mikaftor hishmidum v'yeshvu tachtam. So this story of changing sovereignty and one country taking it from another, the proof case for that idea is Gaza. Okay, it's in the Bible, it's in Devarim, but the Ramban and Chazal essentially quote it in the very first pasuk of Breshit. It's unbelievable. I just started learning the Ramban on Genesis 1:1, and I find myself in Gaza. And the resolution of this, okay, so are we imperialists? Did we conquer someone else's land? Can we have an ethical society while we're ruling over this territory? And again, I'm not a greater Israel type of guy, okay? I'm not an imperialist by nature. I put here a picture, the top picture is the British at the gates of Gaza, and the bottom picture is Che Guevara, okay? A revolutionary in Gaza in 1959. So it has a story to it, Gaza. The answer to all this is that ha'olam umlo'o shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The world and everything in it belongs to God. Kishuratza nitano lachem. Kishuratza nitlo mikem v'nitano lanu. When he wanted, he gave it to you, whoever that might be, and let that be the Palestinian people. When he wanted, he will take it away from you and give it to us. And I'm not, whether Israel needs to conquer Gaza right now, they don't need to stay and rule over 2 million Palestinians. I'm not getting into that question. And I'm just showing the hashgacha of the fact that Gaza, which is right now dominating world news, is dominating the parish of the Ramban on the very first verse of the Torah as a proof case of the transient nature of sovereignty. Okay, so that's unbelievable. And it's about hashgacha pratis. It's about the illumination of everything that we're going through and all the darkness that we're living through, the pain and the suffering, the distraction. Let me get back to work. I can't because I'm distracted because there's a war, an awful war of terrible things. And it's all from Gaza. And Gaza's right here. God has put that into the center of the world's agenda right now. So I close with a prayer. Yiratzon shekadosh baruch hu, Yimale kol haaretz deas Hashem. Let the world be full of the knowledge of God. Let us celebrate a peaceful Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is Sunday. Chodesh Cheshvan. We should have peace in our land. Again, we need war before we're going to have peace. That's just the way it is. So I'm for refuah, for the ptsuim, nechama, for the shkulim, v'shavu vanim legvulam, those who have been taken captive, let them return home soon to their family in health and in peace. Thank you for being here. Wishing and hoping to see you in better times. B'karov.